And welcome to the Big Gunner Podcast. So, wild week in Giant Land, I think so, because we start off the week and hear that there's interest in Matthew Stafford coming to the Giants. We sign a quarterback coach, which is his brother-in-law, and all of a sudden now you get an instance where the rumors start swirling that Matthew Stafford wants to come to the Giants. So you follow stuff on X and you see what information you're getting. And we have a lot of really good, informative young podcasters in Giant Country. And I follow a lot of them. I think they're young and they don't, have the experience of knowing the history of the team and all that stuff. So the recent Giant fans and podcasting is like a 10-year-old profession. So they really haven't seen it other than the Super Bowl 11. They really haven't seen a lot of what we've seen as history of being a Giant fan for some 50 years. And one of the things that I saw in this week that interested me is why people would even be it. Matthew Stafford would want to come to Giants, number one, but why people are against this move. And I've listened to the powers that be on, Get Up Late or Second Take and stuff like that they watch here on ESPN, which I love some of what they do, but I think whenever it comes to the Giants, I think they're way off base. But in this particular case, I think it's intriguing, and I'll tell you why. When I was there in 1984, Bill Parcells did it his way, came out and said, I have to do things my way. Brian Daboll has to do things his way. And in my opinion, at this particular point, I kind of trust Daboll more than Shane. And what Daboll is getting into is his job is on the line. So the Giants need to be better. They're going to have to draft a quarterback, and I'm with all that they have to get a young guy in this draft, either the first or second round. The reports are, and I'm in agreement with them, that the first top two players are really not the answer. This quarterback draft is not even close to what last year's quarterback draft is. There's a lot of quarterbacks available in this draft, but not a number of a quality like there were in the top 12 picks. 6 of them went last year. And you had the success of Bo Nix. You had the success of Jaden Daniels. You had Drake May, who looks like very promising. Caleb Williams has struggled, but obviously the tools are there. Like Michael Penix came in late in the season and played okay for Atlanta, and then you had J.J. McCarthy who blew his knee out. So without all that being said, and the initial start I came back to was proposing a deal, and I'd be interested in the third pick for J.J. McCarthy, but not the third pick for Matthew Stafford, and here's why. You're getting a late 30-year-old quarterback who might give you 2 or 3 more years. But I don't know that he's the answer going forward, but he's definitely a stopgap and definitely a quarterback that I feel can help the Giants win games immediately. If you find a way to protect him, again, I go back to this. I said this, for new viewers on No Filter, but if you go on Spotify, I have said that the biggest loss a team can't have when you don't have depth is key positions. And the left tackle, losing Andrew Thomas, for the last 2 years has been detrimental. Has been terrible. I think we've won 2 games without him. We're like 2-18 with him not playing. And so you just see that was an issue. And if you look at what you see, and it happened in the Super Bowl, it happened a lot with Aaron Rodgers, the Jets, and we'll talk a little bit about him coming up. You will see that if you start taking your eyes off the vision of looking at receivers, you're done. The minute you take your head down and you're seeing where the rush is coming from, the play is gone, basically. You either got to make it with your legs, lift your head up and see what's open at that point, but you have a split second to do that or you're going. And that's really the issue, I think, where Daniel Jones had a problem. Is I think he would have figured it out, was on his way to being okay. And when Andrew Thomas got hurt in the Cincinnati game, that was it. You could see him change differently. Struggled in the Minnesota game. Then he played a couple decent games. We lose in Washington, plays well. Win at Cleveland, plays very well in the Seattle game. And it's just, you just saw that it was starting to take hold, that he was going to come out of this maybe where, I don't know if it's a $40 million guy. I don't know if he's your answer. You still might be looking for a quarterback this year, but it wouldn't have been as bad without his left tackle getting hurt, because I think that derailed him. And I think the same thing goes back to Eli Manning. I think he was a different player once Chris Snee retired. Chris Snee, I've said numerous times in this podcast, is the best offensive lineman I think the Giants have ever had, at least since I've been watching. And I think once you lose the ability, your confidence that you can You can protect the passer, and the passer goes that way. That's it. I think that's what Drew Lock was struggling with. In the games that he struggled, he was running away from a rush, looking at pressure. And I think when you're in the watching film, you're kind of saying to yourself, that's it. That's the high pressure problem. So that's where I think the Stafford thing comes in. Now it's what do you pay for him? And I think what you're looking at is maybe a second round pick is what I would give for him. You can't give the third pick of the draft. And even if these aren't the quarterbacks you want, there's too many good players there. Mason Graham would be a huge fit for us to go next to Dexter Lawrence. Travis Hunter can do both ways, play both ways. You might use him as a corner. I think he's going to the combine as a corner. And then you figure out where you could use him. I think he's an intriguing guy that I think would be good for the team and good for like just gaining a vibe and excitement about where we're going with having a player that's never like other than I don't think there's ever been a player. Deion Sanders was maybe the last one that kind of did it successfully, but no one's ever tried to do this. I think this would be a great thing for the Giants to get a hold of a player like this, to get him in. So I think there's other moves, and I'm a strong proponent of Jackson Dart. I love what he's done. I like the way he plays. Very similar to Bo Nix. I think he'll get a little bit better. And I think that's the immediate guy that I think that would be the turnaround type guy for us. And I think he might be available at 34. I think you have to watch and see what happens. And then you also have the ability to trade out. So I think there's a lot of options. But the Matthew Stafford thing to me was intriguing because he's a winner. He still can play. He can make throws. And I think if we find a way to protect him, if the price is right, and he doesn't take a ton of our free agent money, and he doesn't take enough of our draft capital to get him, I honestly think that he would be a real good solution for what we have temporary and possibly play his way. Like, maybe plays till he's 40, and if we keep him upright, it'll be good. Because I think, look, they were, a touchdown away, 30 yards away from getting to the Super Bowl. And no one saw that, week 5 or 6 into the season. So he's a player. And then also, there's Cooper Kupp is probably going to get released. So now the Giants are supposedly one of the top 3 teams interested in that. I think if Kupp comes, that might intrigue him even more to probably coming in. And Cooper Kupp would be a perfect complement to Malik Neighbors. I think then you try to get Slayton on a little deal and you have your receiving core, you're done. You don't even have to address it, with what we have in free agency and who's on the injured reserve, Ford Wheaton and all those guys that could be the 5th and 6th and 7th receivers. I think you're in really good shape in the receiving core. But again, it's going to come down to this. I said last week, we got to get after Philly. Right now the Eagles are clearly better. We went last year with a big free agency, big moves, hard knocks, knowing we had to catch Philly. John Mara makes the big statement about I'm going to lose sleep. I've lost sleep. He's lost sleep. We all have lost sleep as Giant fans, watching what Philly did with our guy. And it's like these are the moves that I think that this team has got to go make to try to win immediately now. So as much as the younger generation might not want to build this way, I think you have to take into consideration Shane and Dable's situation that they will be gone. So if they're looking to save their jobs, I don't want them to give away the future, but you have to sit there and realize that, a 4-win or 5-win season they're going to lose their job. And probably if it's really bad, the 1-7 start mid-season, they're going to lose their jobs. So then you got to look at where we go. Now, something that came up, a stat that I saw that I found very intriguing. Now, ESPN did say, I missed it on SportsCenter, what they think Aaron Rodgers is going to do and where he's wanted free agency. There was Colin Cowherd spread the rumor that it looked like that the Rams would be interested. If Stafford went out to the Giants, then the Rams would be kind of get into playing with Aaron Rodgers. But here's the point that I want to make about Aaron Rodgers. Do I think he could still play? Absolutely. And here's why. 28 touchdowns, 11 interceptions. Okay, so now as you're thinking there, why those numbers are big. In the history of the game, since 1967, there have been about 15 quarterbacks that have thrown 28 or more touchdown passes with losing records, of which only 4 had 12 losses. Those being in 1997, Vinny Testaverde for the Ravens threw 33 touchdowns with a 4-12 team. The next year, Jeff George threw 29 touchdowns with a 4-12 team with the Raiders. And then we get to 2020, the Houston Texans, Deshaun Watson threw 31 or 32 touchdowns, maybe 33, I think, on a 4-12 team with the Texans. Now, the last years, I'll say, the game has opened up more to the passing attack. But my thought is that the Jets had 4 games in the fourth quarter where they blew leads. If that was the case, they would have been 9-8, and with a 1-game turnaround and a little momentum, they probably wouldn't have had an outside shot at the playoffs. So when they let Aaron Rodgers go, I don't know that he was the real problem. Was maybe I thought it was the Jets' overrated defense. So now I'm saying to myself, would Aaron Rodgers be a fit? Just coming a little over a little border to the other side of the locker room, and that's something I think we should consider. Crazy as it sounds, not a future thing, but if you draft a high pick and you want to address this, and he doesn't want to leave the area, okay. The problem you're going to have with Aaron Rodgers is he wants to win now and get to a Super Bowl. So I don't know that we're that team, but I think this, as he said as Brian Daboll said after the Indianapolis win, who was playing for a playoff spot, high quality quarterback play, you'll get better. And it starts with the offensive line, having skilled people. I think outside of losing Barkley, this is the most skilled receiving core I think we've had. And I'm a firm believer of that. This is the way to go. Get a free agent guy to come in here and play right away. Let the quarterback sit and learn. You don't have to use that first pick on that quarterback. Maybe Jackson Dart is in that level. I wasn't really thrilled with what I saw out of Jalen Milroe, and the reports are that wasn't really accurate down in, at the Senior Bowl. And I also has been told he wants to, people might look at him as a running back, and he wants nothing to do with that. I love Jalen Milroe as a kid, and I think he's a good player. But watching the Oklahoma game this year, when they really went into the tank when they needed the game, and they lost like 24-3, I think the score was. And Oklahoma, which, we're big South Carolina people in this household, and watching, we beat South Carolina 35-9. We couldn't figure out how that happened that day going to Oklahoma. Like, it was really bad to watch that performance by Alabama that day. And you got to hold it on the quarterback. So I'm not sure about Jalen Milroe, although I think he's a possibility if Jackson Dart's gone and he's sitting there in the second round if we don't go quarterback in the first round. But these are the things I think that we have to approach. Now, Russell Wilson is another one. So you have Russell Wilson, who played pretty well for Pittsburgh. They're going to let him go, make a move. What you like about Russell Wilson is the experience. Played in the Super Bowl, played pretty well last year at Denver. Wasn't bad. I think he's problems with the protection. I thought he had problems seeing the field. He doesn't have that elusiveness, mobility that he had 10 years ago when he was winning games with Seattle and in the Super Bowls. But he's still good enough that you'd have him if you're looking to hold off on another quarterback, and the price might be right. You might get him for a little less money. So I think it comes down to, what are these prices of these guys going to cost? The Matthew Stafford move is intriguing, but is the price going to be too much to the salary cap and to the draft capital of what we have to give up for him? But I think the Giants should look at all options. And from what we understand, this is what their thinking is. They know they got to get busy at quarterback, and they have to do it. And this is what's going to keep Shane and Dable around. So no matter what the fan base thinks, no matter what, we sit and look at this as like we have to repair this long term. Shane and Dable do not have long term. So I want all the fans to realize that this is a 1-year fix to get to the 500 mark. And I think we have reasonable owners that everybody's upset with. But I think if they see progress, they'll keep them around. I've never seen the Giants change like they've changed. I had to go really back and dig into this, to John McVay, Bill Armsbarger, Alex Webster, years in the 70s, to how we changed coaches. But remember, we had, Perkins was left for Alabama in year 4. That was unexpected. It wasn't going anywhere. They were going to be a long term. Parcells got, 10 years with, 9 years with the Giants. Then, we had 2 at Ray Hanley, and that was a whole other episode. Then Dan Reeves came in, and then that got a little ugly. Then Jim Fassel had 5-6 years. Then confident that. So the Giants really do not want to overturn personnel like that as high-end front office personnel. And that's what I really think, that I think we'd like to keep this group around. I was very disenchanted. I thought Joe Judge had to go, but I didn't really want to see him go. Gettleman, yeah, we're going to go back and look at the Andrew Thomas pick was a good pick. And, I get really upset at the trade out now because Michael Parsons could have been a giant. I have my issues with Dave Gettleman, but in the long haul, you got to look at his drafts. Maybe weren't that bad when you go back and look at him. I don't know. You know, but one thing I'm really sick of is letting players get out of our room, our locker room, go somewhere else and perform better. You can even question whether Evan Ingram is a better player in Jacksonville than he was with the Giants. We already know what 26 just did this year. So my thing is, especially, don't let these good players go in the division. So if we're going to make moves for salary cap casualties and not sign guys that we think we can play, at least let's figure out if they're going to sign somewhere else. I think we should keep all the good players we have in house and not let them go into the division. But that's a little bit for the Giants this week. We're going to come back next week and add a little bit more. But there's one thing I really want to talk about in sports before we pick some games for you, and that is what I saw Saturday night in Canada, watching the U.S. hockey team play Canada. The NFL Pro Bowl, obviously the guys don't want to play because they don't want to get hurt. The NBA All-Star game for a couple decades has been a joke. The guys do whatever they want. No one defends. No one does anything. The NHL All-Star game was 3-on-3s and shooting, and that became a little bit of a joke. But what they have done with this Four Nations, whoever came up with the idea, is absolutely brilliant. I've watched every game. Every game's a playoff game. The players cared about it. And the start of that game Saturday night, and I'm not one for fighting and all that, was so unexpected to me to watch the Chuck brothers drop the gloves in the first 3 seconds. Then to watch Miller go after the biggest guy in Canada, it seemed like, and take a little bit of a whipping, to me, showed me that this means something to the U.S. And the fact that, whatever political stance you have, and I'm not ever going to get political on this show, but the fact that we were booed, our national anthem was booed, and considerably booed. It was booed first when they played Finland, but you could hear it loud and clear by these Canadian fans that they were booing the national anthem. And I've heard that it motivated our players, and I rightly so. If I was on the ice, I would have been livid. And I didn't see. I'll be looking forward to the game Thursday night, and I will look and see if we boo their national anthem. I didn't see what happened yesterday at 1:00. I missed the start of the game, so I'm sure they, knowing our way we are, that I think probably in Boston they probably did. But I just wish that if I was in that stadium, I would act respectfully to both national anthems, respect the game of hockey, because with the show that these guys have put on has made me really want to watch hockey even more when the playoffs come around. Me growing up basketball, coaching basketball, playing the game, I've always been a fan of the game. But I just see the game going down a different path now that I think it's saved because of legalized sports betting. I think in 2018, PASPA probably gave the NBA a real big boost up that now people are watching the game because they're betting on it. And the way I feel, been a gambler my whole life, and and probably follow the sports a lot more closely because you have money on it. But I think this USA Thursday night game is going to be some game. I'm going to throw out a pick right now that my heart's with the U.S. My money might be on Canada. I think they might have the better personnel, and I think they have a little bit of the edge after losing. I know the two Chuck brothers, one Brady kid went out of the game last night. I think they're all going to play, but are they banged up? Austin Matthews didn't play yesterday. Suffered 2-1 loss to Sweden. Just very tough pick 'em game 110. I probably would watch the line move, probably bet against the line move. So if it went to 120 either way, that someone's throwing reasonable money, I might go against the public on this game. But I think right now my heart's with the USA, obviously. Don't know where my money is. Tough game to bet, but we'll see. I'll probably bet against the line move, but if it stays in pick 'em, my recommendation would be Canada. I think they bounce back after losing. Although we have a huge goaltending edge in this game, we'll have to see what happens. But man, when McKinnon and McDavid and Crosby are on the ice on a power play, you better not take any stupid penalties because that'd be an easy fix for Canada. So it should be a great game. U.S. did a great job Saturday, and I was so proud. Glued to the TV. Felt like it was like watching the Panthers and the Knights and my two hockey teams in the last couple of years in the Stanley Cup Finals. but just a great sporting event. NHL got it. Hope everybody can learn from this, that there's got to be ways to put the best on the field where they look like they want to put forth effort and make it worthwhile. Heck, put those 4 teams on the NBA like they did Sunday night and give them $500,000 if they win, if that's what's going to motivate them. Have someone come out there and throw the money in a pool for them and say, okay, here's what you're getting if you win. That's what I'd like to see. And, if you're going to watch any of these All-Star games. I just don't even watch it. Nothing else was on Sunday night, so I just flipped it on and saw a little bit, but I didn't watch it. And then watching Matt McClung win the slam dunk competition, now all of a sudden all these guys want to come out. I got my reasons why I think that is, but what this kid's done for the slam dunk has made it unbelievable. The 4 dunks he made, if you haven't seen a clip, you can find it on X. They have a little 2-minute rotation of all the dunks he made, which is absolutely amazing. And the reaction of Kenny Smith and Vince Carter and everybody who was on the set of TNT was phenomenal. I love that too. So, all right, let's get into some picks. So we're going to go 3 college basketballs tonight. Marquette's been struggling. Seton Hall gets a big win over UConn at home. 17.5 points. I'm going to take a chance and take the Pirates from New Jersey. Seton Hall plus 17.5 against Marquette. I need to see a little bit more out of Marquette. I think they get the win, but it probably don't cover the number. Game down in the SEC, which team is really struggling. Our South Carolina Gamecocks is really struggling. And I'm looking at LSU and seeing that they're playing a lot better. Watched LSU against Oklahoma. I had Oklahoma this week and lost by my words. They're laying 2.5 tonight at home against South Carolina. Real motivation game. Stay out of the cellar of the SEC. I think LSU gets it done. Laid at 2.5 with LSU over South Carolina. And then last but not least, very interesting game. So Kansas is getting 3 from BYU at BYU. Very tough place to play. Watch BYU out when they were in the Big West. I think that was the conference name, but I watched them when they were playing at the Orleans Arena and, got to see BYU. And you thought when they would come in, they would take over Gonzaga and St. Mary's and never did. Now being in the Big 12, little upgrade in basketball talent, but they're having a decent year. They're a bubble team. Kansas looks like they're in. So I think BYU laying the 3, there's a reason for it. I'm not going to get tricked. I'm going to take BYU lay the 3. So we're going to go with Seton Hall plus 17.5, LSU minus 2.5, and BYU minus 3 tonight. I'm going to take a little bit of a small play on Canada. It's like that old adage when you're gambling, be happy either way. So if USA wins, I'm still happy, and I make a little money if Canada wins. It's just a little thing that I've always got. It's like betting against the Giants. If the Giants bet the money line against the Giants, right? If you Giants win, you're happy. You lose the money, but if you're going to lose, you might as well make some money in the whole deal. Thanks everybody for listening. We'll be back with Bury Your Bookie on Thursday with Defo, and up until then, next week when we get back to you, go Big Blue.